Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday from a very, very hot Southern California. It's crazy. I don't know what happened to the weather. It was really nice last week. Today, it's 90 out here, guys, so I'm already sweating. So fingers crossed that my phone doesn't overheat. If so, I've got my computer right here. We're having a little bit of problems in the chat beforehand with my chat connecting. My phone's dimming already. So anyway, we'll do the best we can, but we have an exciting topic today. We're talking about strawberries. And strawberries are always one of the most popular garden fruits to grow and also one of the easiest. So tomorrow it's supposed to be like in the 60s, and I hear a lot of you guys are, or some of the US is expecting some pretty cold temperatures. So hopefully things kind of level out here, but it is a wonderful time to be out in the garden, and we're gonna grow us some strawberries today. So let me just say hello to those of you here in the chat. Welcome, thanks so much for joining me on a Monday morning, Monday afternoon now. Here we have, let's see, my phone just dimmed, I guess from the heat. So it's really hard to see the chat, but we'll give it our best try. Sierra Blaine, my kids' favorite things to eat. Yeah, it's super fun when you can grow it yourself, grow them yourselves, and you can just, have them run outside and pick some. Mia, can I use straw or does it have to be the special? Do I ensure they don't have seeds? Okay, we're going to answer questions a little bit later on. We have, so we'll get to that. If I forget to talk about mulch, make sure that you remind me. Mac is a connoisseur of comfort. Yeah, look here, guys. He knows what it's all about here. He's here in the shade and keeping me company, so he probably will wander up and try and get in the house in a little bit here. Okay, Judy, hello from Ontario. Hi, Judy. Nice. Thanks for joining us here. Nice to see you on. Lighting the Way Ministries International. Great to have you on here today. Douglas Ferga, beautiful 77 in Northeast Florida. Wow, that's awesome. What a beautiful day there in Florida. Sawyer Smith, my first year growing, so I need help with watermelon and cucumbers. Great time to be a first-time gardener, and you are in the right place. Jesse, I want my strawberries to be bigger, so we'll talk about that today as well. Irene, hi Kim, going to be 90 degrees here in Merced. Yeah, it's crazy. This one hot day of heat wave and then back into the 60s. In fact, you guys, I actually put some shade cloth up this morning. I really am hoping that the 90-degree day does not ruin my salad station. And I've got some of the nasturtiums covered. I actually covered the entire fountain planter this morning because we are supposed to be taking photos for my book this week. And I really don't want things to fry. So we're trying to keep things looking good for as long as possible. Not only so we can enjoy the nasturtiums and the cool weather vegetables, but so I can get some really good photos for my book. So please cross your fingers for me, would ya? Okay, so let's talk about the first tip here to grow a ton of strawberries. There's some very simple things that you can do to really increase your harvest. And first of all, before we talk about the first tip, actually, let's cover kind of some basics about strawberries. And you guys can see some right behind me here. I'm actually growing these in strawberry crate towers, which are a great way to grow. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But strawberries are actually a perennial. So they usually do come back over the winter time. You can protect them in the winter with some straw. They kind of go dormant in the winter and then they come back as soon as the temperatures start to warm up. But they really grow best between, I'd say, 35 degrees and 85 degrees. So if you're somewhere in that range, towards the warmer end, they're going to start flowering and fruiting, and hopefully you're going to be able to get a good amount of strawberries. So with that being said, oh yeah, and they really don't do too well once it gets over 85 into the 90-degree range. So I usually try and cover mine with shade cloth once it gets over 80 to just kind of protect them and keep them producing. But they're not as super tolerant of hot weather, but they do tolerate a frost, although they go dormant in the wintertime. So that being said, covering the bases there with our strawberry basics. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention there, guys, about it being a perennial is generally what they do is they go pretty well and produce pretty well for about 3 years. And that's, they won't die at that point. They won't die off at that point, but the harvest, the production really does slow down. And so sometimes you may need to start replacing your plants like on the 4th year. So some of mine are overdue for replacement. So I will be doing that hopefully in the next couple of weeks. You You can grow them from seed, but I really haven't had much luck doing that. They're a little bit difficult to grow from seed. I've had much better luck just picking up some transplants from the garden center and then popping those in my towers or in my containers. So with that being said, let's talk about the very first tip to grow yourself a ton of strawberries. And this first tip is really great to get harvests throughout the growing season. And that is to plant different types of strawberries, not necessarily referring to the different varieties of strawberries, but different types. There's actually 3 different types of strawberries. The first one is called the June bearing type of strawberry, and that type of berry mainly produces for a few weeks early in the spring or in June, thus called June bearing. And those are going to be your first producing berries of the season. Excuse me, they typically are your largest size of berries because they produce all their crop at once. So all their energy goes into producing those larger types of berries. So if you're wondering why you're not getting large berries, it could be because for other reasons, but because you don't have June bearing type of berries. The second type is called everbearing. Now everbearing generally produce 2 different crops a year. One in the spring and then one in the late summer and fall. So it kind of takes that in-between period to kind of take a little break, kind of rejuvenate, kind of gear up for the next harvest. And so if you plant June bearing and everbearing, then you're going to have harvest at different times. Now there is a third type and it's called day neutral. And what those are is they produce a good amount of fruit the very first year. And again, they really do, they produce, you know, not the whole entire season, but you can get a pretty steady supply throughout the season and even over the winter sometimes in milder climates like here in Southern California. Excuse me. And typically those are the smallest type of berries. So if you plant different types of berries, you can see how you can kind of spread your harvest out throughout the growing season. So a lot of people say, why aren't my strawberries producing right now? Well, it could be that you have June bearing. They've already produced their crop for the year and then they're done. So when you go to the garden center, look for, actually that it doesn't usually say it on the back of the tag when you pick up transplants. Usually what I'll do is when I go to the garden center, I'll just kind of Google whatever variety I'm picking up and see if it's a day neutral, an everbearing, or a June bearing. And if you can, try and find some varieties of each different type. So hopefully that'll help you get berries all season long and be able to harvest a ton of berries throughout the growing season. And I do have a video, I did a video a few years back on strawberry types explained. So go back and look up that video for more information. And there's also an excellent website, probably one of the best websites I've ever seen on strawberries. And it is called strawberryplants.org. Mac's is getting uncomfortable, it's probably getting too hot. It's called strawberryplants.org. So go on there. There are a ton of strawberry growing tips, including a detailed description of the different strawberry types explained and tons of growing tips on there. And I believe there is a chart that lists different varieties of strawberries and if they're day bearing, everbearing, or June bearing. So just go in there, look it up, and it also talks about which types of berries grow best in different areas. But just, you know, purchase what you can find at your local garden center because most likely they are carrying varieties that will do well in your area. Okay guys, that's the first tip. Grow different types of strawberries and you're sure to get a ton of harvest all season long. So I'm going to jump into the chat here and let's see what questions you all have about berries. I'm actually going to look at the chat on my computer because it's really hard to see on my phone right now. So if I'm looking down, it doesn't mean I'm not looking at you or looking at the questions. I'm just looking over here. Okay, here's a question from Susan Thomas. Hi, Susan. And Susan says, hello from Detroit, Michigan. I got my strawberry plants from a friend who was thinning his strawberry field. I've had them for 2 years in pots and they've never fruited. Okay, Susan, we're actually going to cover that a little bit more, I think, in the next tip. So hang on to that. And we'll cover that in just a moment. The one thing I can think of right off the bat, besides our next tip, is that perhaps those berries could be in maybe they're, you know, like their 4th year. If your friend had them in his field already for a couple of years, you're into year 2, perhaps maybe they're just getting to be a little bit older of a plant. That could be one reason, but we'll cover another tip that will help you get more fruit in just a moment. But you also might want to, if you can, find out what variety they are, if they're a June bearing, ever bearing, or day neutral, and that might help you kind of gauge, you know, what time of year they'll be producing. Okay, let's see here. Here's a comment from Farah Reed. This is the 3rd year for my strawberries. My husband took slips from the plants over the summer, and right now they have way more flowers than the mother plant. And we're actually going to talk about runners or slips. I usually call them runners in just a moment as well. So great question. And Shane Graves, hi, how are you? Says, I have a question about spacing out containers and what is the advice to space plants in containers with veg that don't get together. Thank you in advance. Okay, well, spacing containers really depends on what type of vegetables you're growing in containers. There's a great resource on SmartPot's website, and there'll be a link in the video description of this video when it uploads, and it's called like what size plant that you can put in what container. And that'll kind of help you gauge. But you also want to go back and watch our container garden series from last year and just kind of follow what I did as far as spacing goes. Here I've got a little tiny Tim tomato, and I usually just put one tiny Tim. It's a 2-foot tall dwarf tomato in a 5-gallon. I've got a basil plant right here, and I've got actually 3 or 4 basil plants in a 5-gallon. Usually 1 pepper plant is good for a 5-gallon. So it really just depends on what plant you're talking about, because everything is going to be different. Okay, let's see here. Actually, we're going to go back and talk now about tip number 2 to grow a ton of strawberries throughout the growing season. And that is consistent watering and fertilizing is very, very important for strawberries. Now, strawberries have shallow roots. So if they dry out, the plants could get stunted, get stressed, and possibly die. So you really want to make sure that you keep your watering consistent. If you're growing in the towers, yeah, this is where I was going to talk about towers. If you're growing in crate towers, and just a little bit more about the crate towers here, these are just plastic crates that you can pick up like at Target. You can grab them on Amazon, and then they're lined with the SmartPots crate liners. So they have liners that are made out of the same SmartPots fabric that we use in our containers that you see all around me in the garden, the raised bed garden. And it's a porous fabric, it drains really well, it's super durable, and it fits just about perfectly. They actually have a couple different sizes. So go over on their website, figure out what crates, what type of crates you're gonna grow in, and then measure the crate towers, or measure the crate liners to make sure they'll fit. So they really work well and they hold up. And all you do is just cut little holes in them and stick your strawberries in there. But it's a great way to grow a lot of berries in a little bit of space. And they love the drainage. So drainage is another thing that's very important for strawberries. They don't like to get waterlogged. So you don't want to plant them in an area in your garden that's kind of like a bowl shape, like a lower type of area, because all the water will run down and then your strawberries aren't going to do very well. So raised beds work great for strawberries because raised beds have better drainage, and the crate towers I found the most successful method that I've used to grow berries. They really do like them because the water drains, you're able to water them and be consistent with it. If you really want to be consistent with your watering, I highly recommend drip irrigation. In this tower, I have drip irrigation on the top and on the second level as well. So whenever my drip runs, it waters both levels. So I found that that's really the most effective way to water them. You can do it with a hose, but it's going to take you a lot more time because you'll need to water it slowly, let the water all kind of, flow downward, and just be very, very consistent about your watering. So that's another tip to get a lot of berries, is make sure that your watering is very consistent. Now, the other thing is that make sure that you're very consistent with fertilizing. They need consistent fertilizing throughout the growing season to keep on producing the berries. So I always give them a good combination of the good dirt plant food, which is higher in nitrogen, but it's also got the elements of phosphorus and potassium that help grow the flowers and produce the fruit. So I usually make a little plant cocktail with the good dirt plant food, the Vermistera worm tea, and then I water my containers with them about every 10 days For your raised beds, you can go a little bit longer, maybe every 3 to 4 weeks, but definitely put your strawberries on a schedule. So for the person, I think it was Sarah, that asked, you have berries in containers, why aren't they producing? That could possibly be why. Maybe they're drying out, getting stressed out, maybe you're not fertilizing them consistently. So you really will see a big difference if you start fertilizing them consistently. Now, another way that I love to grow strawberries that's actually kind of new to me, I'm gonna grab this over here, is in hanging baskets. And we're actually going to be doing another hanging basket video within a couple of weeks, just talking about how to care for hanging baskets. So I just transplanted these berries yesterday, so they're still kind of looking a little bit limp. But once they take hold and take root in this hanging basket, they're going to perk right up. It might take them like a week or so. But this is a great way to grow berries because I think it looks super pretty. I put a little hanging basket hook up on my deck rail. So these are going to go up there, and they just look absolutely beautiful. So grow them in hanging baskets, and we'll talk just in just a moment about some tips for transplanting berries. So let me head into the chat, see what other questions you have about berries. Make sure that you're growing different varieties. Make sure that you're being very consistent with your watering and fertilizing, and that'll really help you have bigger harvests. Okay, oh, another thing I wanted to mention, for the crates, don't think that you're just stuck on growing berries. One thing that's kind of fun to do is grow berries on the side, maybe a few spilling over the top, and then plant something else on the top. I've got some marigolds in there right now, but you can also plant, we've done a couple videos on making a lettuce strawberry tower or a kale strawberry tower. So any smaller types of vegetables really grow well. Either in the different holes in the tower or on the top. So definitely go back and watch those videos. And I have a lettuce seed collection, container garden seed collection, all kinds of smaller types of vegetables in my seed collections that will grow well on the top. So go over and check out my seed collections if you need seeds for that as well. Okay, so let's head into the chat, get your questions here about berries. And let me see here. Jack, how are you doing, Jack? Good to see you. Do you have any tips for growing bare root strawberries? I personally have not had big success growing bare roots. I'm sure there's people out there that have. It's just not really the method that I prefer because it takes a really long time, or not a really long time, but it just takes longer for the berries to start producing, for the leaves to leaf out. But it is definitely one of the most economical ways to go. But I'd say you want to make sure you get your bare roots from a very reliable source. I believe that strawberryplants.org has bare roots available. I picked some up at Home Depot a few years back, and they were pretty much dead by the time I got them home. I never had great luck with them. So if anyone else has any suggestions, that would be great. Go ahead and pop that in the chat if you've had success with that as well. Okay, let's see here. Sister Marcel's backyard garden, and this is a question I get all the time. Should I pluck the first blooms after overwintering? You know what? I personally, I'm not big on plucking the blooms. Some people I know do like to do that. I'd say the day neutrals are not necessary to pluck the blooms, to pinch off the blooms. And what that is, for those of you that have never heard that before, a lot of people suggest that you pinch off the blooms in order so the roots get established in the plants. And then, so they spend the first year getting established, and then the second year they produce more fruit. So maybe I'm just a little bit too impatient. I think with a day neutral, you really don't need to do that. With the June bearing, you might want to give that a try because they only produce once a year. So you might want to, number one, plant a different variety so you have those day neutrals coming on and producing fruit. With the June bearing, pinch the blossoms so that first year their roots can get established, and then that second year they're really gonna spend all their energy on producing fruit. So it'd be kind of fun to try both ways. If anyone out here in the chat has any experience with that, please let us know. I would love to hear that. Okay, let's see. I am starting to get, I think someone asked about powdery mildew. Oh, here we go. I'm starting to get powdery mildew on my bare roots. The bloom, this is from Kelly. The blooms turned brown and didn't open. They are in good dirt, plant food, and fertilized with good dirt and vermistera. Any tips? Okay, Kelly, I would suggest using a copper fungicide. I've been spraying all of my squash and cucumbers with copper fungicide to help prevent the powdery mildew. So I would suggest at the very first sign, hopefully it's not too late, grab some copper fungicide. I have a link in my video description for the Bonide, which I've been using. And you really want to stop that in its tracks as soon as possible. So definitely give that a go. Okay, one more question, then we'll head back to our tips. Here's from Annette. When starting a crate tower, where would the mother plant be planted first? On the side. The mother plant refers to the main strawberry plant, and then you have runners that come off. So if you are, we're going to talk about runners in just a moment, but when I grab my 6 packs of strawberries at the garden center, I don't really worry too much about where I plant them. I pretty much just fill the tower full. On the sides and the top, I don't really put any on the back because it doesn't get any sun back there, and I'm not really one to come out and turn my tower, although you certainly can do that. But I just forget, and then those plants back there are just kind of wasted. So if you're planting runners from a mother plant, it might be easier if you planted the mother plant on the top and then stuck the runners in the side, but it really doesn't matter. Just try different things. Like I always say, don't be afraid to experiment. Try something and see what works best for you. And we're going to talk about some runner tips in just a moment. Okay, so leading into, this is actually our third tip. If you want to get a lot of harvest that first season, or a lot of harvest throughout the season, you want to remove the runners. Now let me show you what a runner is. I have another little hanging basket here, and this one did have a runner in it, and again, they're looking a little bit limp. Just transplanted them yesterday, but they're going to be perking up here within a couple of days. So the mother plant, oh, here we go. Here's the mother plant. The mother plant is right here, and if you notice that there is a little runner coming off the side here, and here, let me move this leaf out of the way so you guys can see. Okay, so this little stem is running or kind of streaming over here from the mother plant. So you can see it's just starting to kind of develop little roots on the end here. But if you want this plant to produce fruit, the runner actually takes all the energy from the mother plant, and then the mother plant cannot produce the berries. So for this first year of this plant, what I'm going to do is clip off the runner, and that way I definitely get more berries on the mother plant. Now, if you're not really too concerned about having berries from this plant, maybe you already have a lot of strawberries, or maybe it's kind of the end of the growing season and your plant is starting to produce runners, you can root this for free plants. It's really great. All you need to do is put it in soil, or for the towers, you can kind of, let it trail over the edge, stick it in soil. You can even kind of stick it in there like with a little bobby pin, kind of pry the ends of the bobby pin apart and kind of hold it in place. After a couple weeks, it's going to take root in the soil, and then you're going to have a brand new plant, and then you can clip it and disconnect it from the mother plant. So it's pretty cool because you can propagate strawberries and have a lot more plants your second year. So you may want to, have your plants produce a good little harvest for you, and then let the runners grow a little bit and have some brand new plants. So it's really a great way to have a lot more plants your second year without having to go out and purchase more. So I've tried that quite a bit actually over the years, and been very, very successful. But if you want those berries, you definitely want to clip those runners, snip them off right at the base of the mother plant, so all the energy can go into producing berries from the mother plant. So let me hear in the chat here if you've got any questions about that, or any other strawberry questions or strawberry tips that you would like to offer up here. Okay, oh, and I do have a video on that, how to root strawberry runners. So that'll be over in the video description. And also, guys, make sure you go back and look up on my YouTube channel, strawberries in the little search field, and the whole strawberry playlist should pop up. And there's tons of videos on there that we've done over the years of how to grow strawberries in crate towers. Like I said, that's mainly how I grow them. So most of the videos you see on there will be about growing them in the crate towers. It's really my favorite way. And it's so much fun. Give your kids their own little tower to grow. They're gonna absolutely love it. Okay, back into the chat here. And I'm just looking to see if camera guy is on here. I don't see him on here. He might have gotten busy at work. But before we answer a question in the chat, I just want to encourage you guys, if you don't yet, make sure you follow camera guy. He's Camera Guy on Instagram. He posted a really cool video yesterday, a really short little video clip on his Instagram, just about all the sounds and the sights of the garden. And he posts a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and he works at a movie studio, so he posts a lot of behind the scenes of that. So he's got some really cool stuff over there. So make sure you head over to Camera Guy and give him some love, give him a follow. He's actually almost to 2,000 followers on Instagram. So if you guys can head over there and follow him, let's get him to 2,000. All right, you guys, he does so much for this channel behind the scenes, and go over and show him some love. All right, you guys. Okay, so let's see here. Here's a question or a comment from A. Martin. And A. Martin says, we have brown leaves on our strawberries. Okay, that's pretty normal actually. I get a lot of brown leaves on mine as well, especially over the winter time when they go dormant. So the plants almost look like they die, but they usually don't. They can actually withstand temperatures into the teens, very, very cold temperatures. So if you have any brown leaves, no problem, just prune them off. And we're actually gonna talk about that in just a moment, but strawberries really do love a good pruning. So just pull off those leaves and no big deal. Okay, let's see here. Here's a question from Mia. Hi Mia, how you doing? Can I plant scallop squash at the edge of my strawberry bed so it'll drape over the sides? Will there be any downsides to planting them near each other? Mia, I think that would be a great idea. It would look super pretty. It's always fun to maximize your space like that, however you can. And I don't know if you watched our raised bed, planting a raised bed video we did a couple weeks ago. Actually have it all covered up right now because of the heat. But we did plant some, I talked about planting thrillers, which are the taller vegetables in the back that are on that trellis. The fillers in the middle, and then the spillers over the side. So squash would be a great plant for that. And actually the strawberries are kind of the spillers here as well. So yeah, don't be afraid to combine different fruits and vegetables in different garden beds, and the pollinators, or the flowers too, for the pollinators. Bring those pollinators right in to pollinate your strawberries, right, with the flowers. Okay. Let's see what kinds of questions we have here. Here's from Irene. How's it going, Irene? How to get rid of snails and slugs eating my strawberries. I've been covering them at night with the netting and it works. Okay, we're actually going to talk about, you guys are like reading my mind today. We're going to talk about pests too a little bit later. But yeah, definitely covers do help, because all kinds of things like to come in and eat your strawberries. They like them, I think, just as much as we do. Okay, so let's head back to our tips here. Tip number 4 to grow a lot of strawberries is to give them a lot of space. So a lot of times, you know, strawberries will propagate and grow over the season and get really crowded. So last year I actually had to divide my strawberry crate towers into like 2 different crates, because they had been growing in there for a couple years, were just absolutely packed. So I just, you know, dug them out very carefully and then transplanted them into a new crate. In fact, that's what I did with these little baskets yesterday, is they were all crowded into one basket and, you know, still growing, but just didn't have enough space to really expand. So I split them up into 2 different baskets, which they really do need that space to develop the roots, because strawberry roots are super important. That's where they get all of their energy. They really need that space. So if you've been growing strawberries for a couple years in a container, and this might be, was it Sarah that asked why your berries aren't producing? You may want to try splitting your 1 container apart into 2. So you can easily do that with the hanging baskets. These are the little crate liners. They're by Smart Pots that work great in the hanging baskets. They would do well also in a 5-gallon container. You could plant, I would say maybe 3 or 4 plants in a 5-gallon. Even my little CaliKim 1-gallons, I wouldn't put more than 1 or 2 in there, and then split them up once they grow. But definitely need to give them their space, and you also need to make sure that you prune them. So someone had just asked, my strawberry leaves are brown. So it's very typical throughout the hot months or throughout the cold months to get brittle leaves, brown leaves, leaves that just aren't looking super healthy. Maybe they're turning yellow. So you want to go in there and just clip those leaves off, and you will be amazed at how your strawberries will respond to a good pruning. And if you can, you guys, see, here's actually a little brown stem. I can kind of pinch it off. If you can, pinch off your stems and your leaves as close to the crown as possible. And that way you don't have little brown things hanging off, taking energy from the plant. Speaking of the crowns, that's one thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to transplanting. When you transplant your berries, it's very important that you do not cover the crown. Hopefully I can show you guys with this plant here. So the crown of the strawberry is this little, actually this might be planted just a little bit too deep. The crown of the strawberry is the little brown part at the base of the plant there. You don't want to cover that. So you want to make sure that you kind of move the soil away from that part, because when you cover that, the berries are not going to grow as well. The plant will not grow as well, and it could even kill the plant. So make sure that you're not like burying your strawberries like all the way up to this part here. That's not going to be good for the plant. So always leave the crown of the plant uncovered when you plant your berries. Super, super important. A small little simple thing, but by doing that, you're really going to help your berries be healthy and get a lot more berries to harvest. Okay, I think that is, yeah, that's all that we need to cover on that point. So let me hear in the chat, are you guys transplanting your strawberries? Are you rooting your runners, and questions that you have about berries? And then we'll get into our tip number, I think we're on tip number 5 now, the next tip. Okay, let's see here. Here's a question from Megan. How are you doing, Megan? Megan Gilmore. You said about 3 years production. Will rooted babies from runners have 3 years to produce, even if the runner came from a 2 to 3 year old plant? That's a great question. And yes, they will. That brand new baby plant is considered a first year plant. So while the mother might be on its 3rd year, you root a runner from the mother, that new baby. Next year, first year plant, you've got a couple years of production out of that. So you can see how you can just kind of keep on going and replacing your 3-year-old plants with brand new baby plants without having to spend a lot of money. So that was a really good question. Thank you so much for that. Okay, let's see here. Hi, Vintage Vibes. Good vibes. Great to see you, or good afternoon from Canada, from Vintage Vibes. Good vibes right back to you. Okay, Luz, how do I know if the crown is dead? The leaves are brown and I have not seen any new growth from last year's plants. Okay, Luz, I would say if it's looking pretty brown and crispy, I know you're in a warmer climate, so you probably should be seeing new growth by now. I would go ahead and, pull that out and then replace it with a brand new plant. So good question. I mean, usually, for the most part, I know some people are still in pretty cold weather, but if you live in a southern climate, for the most part by now, you should be seeing a lot of new growth from your strawberries. Perfect example is if you guys watched our garden tour over the weekend, which I hope you did, because it was the best shot of the nasturtiums, the best tour that we'll probably have with all the nasturtiums on the hill, because I think by next month the weather will be too hot and they'll be starting to fade. So go back and watch the section that I talked about the strawberries. A lot of new growth, a lot of new flowers. These are probably the first berries to produce because they're in full sun. So really get your strawberry plants in full sun, and that's another way that you can get them to produce a lot more for you. Okay. Thank you very much, Luz, for that question. All right, let's see here. How many plants in a 2 foot by 6 by 3 by 6 bed? Oh, you can fit a ton of plants in that size. I would probably plant them maybe 2 or 3 inches apart, maybe 3 inches apart. I don't know exactly how many plants that would be, but just kind of gauge, your space and then go from there. But you can fit quite a bit of plants in that size of bed. Okay, Mia, we did mention fertilizing previous in the live stream. So let's see, go back and watch that section. How often should I fertilize them, and should I be using more than one type, or is one fine? How do I plant with mulch on my bed? Okay, so head back and watch the previous in the live stream where we talked about fertilizing. And by the way, guys, for the live streams, I have been trying to put in a digital table of contents with the different tips and sections. So if there's one that you're interested in that you missed, just scroll back through and you'll see little breaks on the play button at the bottom where you can see the different tips, and then just click on the one that you're interested in. Now, as far as mulch, I forgot to mention that. Yes, you do want to mulch your berries especially number one over the winter time, because it does help protect them from cold temperatures. So a lot of times if you mulch your berries, most of the time they are going to keep on not producing. They'll go dormant, but it'll keep them alive and insulated during the winter time. During the summer though, mulch really helps protect them from excess heat. So what I would do is just mulch the top of this container here, is mulch with shredded leaves, and then kind of dig away a little bit from the crown so you're not burying the crown with your mulch. Straw works great as mulch. I know I've seen on Kevin from Epic Gardening is using a shredded type straw product, which I've never used that before, but it looks, according to his videos, it looks like it works really well. I'm sure you can probably find it online, or maybe like Tractor Supply or different garden centers might have it. So yeah, definitely a good idea. If you're growing in a raised bed, just spread that mulch over the top of your raised bed and then leave a couple little spots there for the crowns. Okay, oh thanks Anne. Yeah, was finally able to get my hair cut last week, so thank you very much. Okay, let's talk about tip number 5. I think I've covered, yeah, I think we're on our last tip here. And the last tip is, which a lot of you have already mentioned, is protect your strawberries from critters to get a ton of harvest over the season. Now, strawberries are probably one of the things that critters love the most, and we're talking all different kinds of critters. Birds, slugs, snails. I don't know if bunnies like to chew on berries, but I would imagine they wouldn't turn them down. So a couple different things you can do. You can grab a bird netting, and you can get that on Amazon. I put a link for you. It doesn't protect it like from the sun. Usually they're just like a netting type of thing, without a sun protection type thing that you put over your berries to help keep the birds from coming in and pecking at your berries. Now, one thing that I've heard a lot of people do, which I've never tried, is might be a fun thing to do with your kids, is find a bunch of flat rocks and paint the tops of them like strawberries and put them around your strawberries, because then the birds will come and peck at those. And obviously, you know, they're not going to like that too much. So hopefully they won't peck at the real ones and maybe won't come back to your garden. So if anyone's tried that, I would love to hear, because I think that would be really fun to try, and it would look really pretty as well. The other thing you can do for slugs and snails, there's a product called Sluggo Plus, which I've used in the past. I don't think I have a link for that in the video description, but you can find it on Amazon. And I believe Bonide also has a slug product, which I think I have some actually. I'll be trying that out. We don't have a huge slug problem here, so I don't really need that quite as much. One thing though that really helps is to keep them up off the ground. One thing that I've used in the past, which is kind of hard to do if you have a lot of strawberries, but if you have a few, what you can do is kind of prop your strawberries. Say you had some up here, you can kind of prop your strawberry stems up on forks to keep them up off the ground. But definitely with some straw and other things like that, that will help as well. So I would love to hear in the chat any of your other critter protection tips as well, and that way we can all learn from each other. But yeah, definitely those critters do like those berries for sure. Okay, oh, another thing that I've been using with great success is the Repels All, and did a couple posts on Instagram. I've mentioned that in a couple of videos, but it's like a garlic clove type of spray and granule that you can shake around your garden, and it keeps away like the bunnies, the deers, the squirrels, and we've had a lot of success with that also. I kind of like the smell. It's a very kind of strong garlic smell, but it's safe for animals as far as your pets go, and it's people safe, and it's approved for organic gardening. So with hopefully some of those things in your tool belt, you'll have a lot less problems with critters eating your berries, but it's definitely something you do need to think about when you're growing strawberries. Okay, let's head back in the chat, answer as many questions as we can. So far, my phone is holding up well to the heat. And I am too, actually, but I do need a little sip of water here. Okay. Possums love snails and slugs. Yeah, possums are actually garden friends, because they do eat some of the critters that aren't so beneficial, or some of the pesky, creepy crawlies that aren't so beneficial to our plants. Okay, Kush Patel, mine are not germinating. You know what? I have not been successful growing strawberries from seed. I tried last year because you guys know I love to experiment, but I didn't have a lot of success with it. And you know what? That's the great thing about experimenting. Sometimes things work, sometimes don't. I would like to try it again this year, but honestly, I don't know if I'm going to have the time to be able to do that. So any germinating strawberry tips germinating from seed, pop them here in the chat, and hopefully we can have some success with that. Okay, let's see here. Ducks will eat the slugs from Nicole. Okay, but hopefully the ducks won't eat the rest of your garden, but maybe they'll help with the slugs, right? Okay, PJ, how to protect my blueberries from birds? Use those bird nettings, which I just mentioned. Let's see here. I ordered some Quinault variety of strawberries from Park Seed, haven't arrived yet. Do you pot right away or soak first? For the bare roots, you want to make sure that you soak them first. Get those roots nice and hydrated, and then plant them out, but don't cover the crown like I mentioned. Okay, Irene, how fun. I have about 4 to 5 strawberries to pick by tonight and use them for my oatmeal breakfast tomorrow. Awesome, that's a great way to have them for breakfast. I think one of my favorite ways is just to put them over fresh yogurt. I make my own yogurt in an Instant Pot, put a little bit of organic avocado honey, which I get here from a local apiary, and then just slice the strawberries, put a little bit of granola, some cashews on top, another drizzle of honey. Oh my gosh, you guys, it is so delicious, a super healthy and quick breakfast. Okay, yeah, you need a lot of patience to germinate strawberries from seed. Yeah, great suggestion. Nicole is saying that she also uses tulle to cover your strawberry to protect it from birds. Yeah, that works great too. Just head down to your fabric store and grab some tulle, cover it, and you might want to just make sure that you clip it on so it doesn't blow away with the wind, and so the other critters can't get up in there. Okay, let's see. To fertilize your pots, you want to make sure you fertilize any of your containers about every 7 to 10 days. And hopefully you guys are enjoying the brand new CaliKim Smart Pots with handles. These are selling like hotcakes. I'm probably going to be out of stock soon. And I've got to, I need to put another order in with Smart Pots, but a lot of my Smart Pots are selling super fast. So they're getting a little bit backed up there. Not Smart Pots' fault. It's just that their volume of orders right now is so high. So if you guys want these, I would highly suggest you get them sooner rather than later, because I have a feeling I am going to be out of stock for a little bit before I can get more stock in. So they come in a 3-pack with the mandarin orange, the berry blue, and the violet, which I don't have right in front of me here, but they absolutely are beautiful. And one really fun thing, I love these. They're so easy to move around with these handles. This Tiny Tim is getting a little bit dry, so I'm going to take it up to the hose after this and give it a water. It's easy just to pick up, move into the house on a hot day like today, or move it into the sun or into the shade. They're really a fun container. Okay, let's see here. I don't know if my chat is connecting real well. If you have any more questions, pop them into the chat. I love all of the comments here. People are saying takes about 20 days to germinate from seed. How do I tell if my strawberry plant is June bearing? I don't have a label from FISA. That's a great question. If you don't know what variety it is, it might be tough. If it bears in June and then doesn't produce again, chances are it's a June bearing plant. But hang in there and be patient, because if it's ever bearing, it's going to produce again in the late summer or the fall. But the June bearing are the biggest berries. So if they're really big berries, chances are it's June bearing. But there's really no way to tell the variety if you lost the tag, but don't worry about it. I do that all the time. A lot of my berries, I have no idea what variety they are because they've been planted for several years, and by that time, the tag is long gone. Okay, Rachel Gill, hello from Ohio. Hi, how are you doing? Can you plant strawberries with tomatoes? From Terry. Absolutely. Absolutely no reason why you can't. In fact, last year we put a little dwarf Tiny Tim on the top of this here, and it did absolutely fine. In fact, that brings up another point. I wanted to mention a couple of good companion plants for strawberries. One of them is borage, and I absolutely love borage. I'm going to turn my camera around, see if you guys can see. There's a small little borage plant growing right in front of me. I don't know if you can see. It is right. It's a little purple plant right about there. You might not be able to see it, but it's actually an herb. It's a warm weather herb, but a beautiful flower. It's in my Bring on the Pollinators warm season flower collection. And it is a great companion plant with strawberries because it helps deter a lot of the the pesky, creepy crawly insects. So if you're having trouble with those things, plant some borage like on near your strawberry, in your strawberry garden bed on top of your strawberry tower. And borage will grow very, very easily. It also self-seeds from year to year. So I think I planted borage once, maybe 5 years ago, and I've never had to plant it again. It pops up all over the place. It's a beautiful purple flower, so it attracts the pollinators, which of course you want pollinators near your berries to grow yourself a lot of berries. So definitely grow some borage. Beans are actually another good companion plant, because they fix nitrogen. They add nitrogen into the soil, which will help fertilize your strawberries. So even if you want to put a couple of bean plants or plant some bean seeds on top of your tower, that would be a really good companion plant for strawberries too. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. I am like dripping with sweat here and hoping that my phone doesn't overheat. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off, head into the house, cool down, get some water. I think tomorrow is supposed to be a little bit cooler of a day, so it might be a better day to come out and garden. But this has been a ton of fun. So much fun to grow berries. By implementing these tips, you're sure to be able to grow and have big harvests of berries all season long. So thank you guys so much for joining me on the live stream, and we'll see you this coming weekend. Make sure you check our channel for a video, make sure you subscribe, and we'll be back next Monday for another YouTube live stream at noon Pacific time. All right, guys, bye-bye, see you later.